Larissa Waters, welcome to Capitol Hill.
Hi, Lyndal.
You've announced today that you want another Senate inquiry into coal seam gas. There's already been one. What will you learn in a second Senate inquiry that you don't already know?
Well, look, there has already been one, but it only looked at the Murray-Darling Basin. Now, that's a really important part of Australia, but coal seam gas is actually an issue for the whole country. So what I'd like to see, and what I'm talking with the other parties about today, is a broader inquiry about coal seam gas across the whole country, and also looking at a few more impacts that we didn't get to look at the first time. The most important of those is dredging in the reef. Now, we've seen in Gladstone Harbour what's happened with this mass dredging project. We've got dead fish, we've got dead crabs, we've got diseased sharks, you name it. There's basically an environmental disaster unfolding in Gladstone Harbour, and that's all for the dredging for coal seam gas ports. The Senate needs to look at that.
Do you accept, though, that coal seam gas can be done safely and with landholders' approval if the right conditions are in place?
Well, look, we just don't know yet, and that's the point. We need to keep discovering more about this industry to determine if it really is safe. We've had the CSIRO just last night in an inquiry into another bill that I've got to deal with this issue, again saying, look, we really don't know enough about the long-term impacts of coal seam gas. Now, when you've got bodies like that, the experts saying, look, we're not sure, there's no guarantees here about the long-term impacts on our groundwater and hence on our food security, then I think we really need to go a bit slower. So we need this new inquiry to get some more information on the table and to hear from the community.
But potentially, if there's a way shown in the future that it could be done safely, perhaps in limited areas, you would not be anti-coal seam gas per se?
Well, look, we think there's better ways of powering our homes and cities, and certainly as the Greens we're pushing for renewable energy, have always done and will always do, but we do need to know more about coal seam gas. We need to know, is it safe? And then we need to have that conversation with the community. Is this where we want to go? This is another fossil fuel. We really need to start doing something about climate change. The clock's ticking now. I think we need to have that conversation, and we would be suggesting that renewable energy is in fact a far better way to go. But we're not at that point yet. We need to get more information on the table.
Now, it's been an issue, coal seam gas has been an issue in Queensland, your home state. Greens are standing candidates in the Queensland election. Are you realistically, though, given it only has one House of Parliament, are you realistically going to win any of those seats?
Well, look, we're certainly hoping to. It is tough when there's only one House of Parliament and the voting system essentially favours the old parties. You've got to get more than 50% of the vote to be elected, and that's tough when you don't have the big funding power of the old parties. So, of course, it's a bit of a challenge for us, but we've got magnificent candidates, and we'll be running a Green in in each 89 seats. So it's looking good for us. Every election, more and more people think, actually, the Greens really do represent my values. I think I'll vote for them this time. So we're hoping that that trend continues. We're continuing to speak to people about the issues that they care about, public health funding, proper funding for our education system, looking after this environment that supports us all and that we all rely on, and a better future for all of us.
Does your party brand, though, suffer any damage because you hold the balance of power federally in the Senate? You've struck an agreement with Julia Gillard to help her form government. The Greens are often supporting many government programs and have already made compromises. A big one was having fuel out of the carbon pricing. Are those compromises that you make going to damage your brand?
Look, I don't think so. I think people see the Greens delivering. I think they're watching us in this minority government, in the balance of power, and seeing just what it means to vote Green. We can get a carbon price. We can get money for a dental care scheme, which we desperately need because there's so many folk who can't afford to get to the dentist.
But you weren't prepared to compromise in the previous Parliament on an emissions trading scheme, and dental care funding, as we heard from the Prime Minister, is not a lock, it's not a given.
Well, look, we're hoping that she indeed does stick with that commitment. But the last carbon scheme was a bad one. It wasn't actually going to fix the problem. This one is a much better one, and it puts us on the right foot to improve as the years go by. So I think people expect us, and certainly we of ourselves, want to stick to our principles, but, we need to get things done. So that's what we're doing in the balance of power. We're getting these runs on the board. People all across the country are seeing that, and I think they're impressed. And they're pleased that we're actually an alternate voice. We're standing up for the future. We're not just in the pockets of big business or industry.
Couldn't you, though, just be painted as the far left wing of the Labor Party?
Oh, look, I don't think so. Really, we do politics very differently. We're just all having a wonderful time here, and we're motivated by that vision for a long-term sustainable future. We're very different from the old parties. We certainly welcome it when the government and the opposition agree with us on the issues that count. That's great. We'd love it if they did that more often. But I think people know that the Greens are the party of long-term vision. We're about looking after this planet and looking after people. So I'm hoping that we get some great support in the Queensland election.
You said that in Queensland that people will see you're the party that cares about their issues, but across the country, even in Queensland, your vote is really only around 10%. Do you have to temper what some say might be some of your extreme views if you're going to grow that vote?
Look, I don't think we have any extreme views. I don't think it's extreme to want to look after the planet that we all rely on. I don't think it's extreme to want to make sure that people can get good dental health care. I don't think it's extreme to look after the barrier reef. So look, I'll take a bit of issue there with your terminology. But look, our vote is actually remarkably similar between urban and regional communities. There's actually not a lot of difference. And that's because we're actually out there on the ground listening to people and hearing their concerns, and they're finding that our concerns match up with theirs. So, we actually have been campaigning quite a lot on regional and rural issues, and people are responding to that. So I think we'll go well not only in the bush but also in the cities.
There are some things in the Greens' positions that seem to be inconsistent. For example, the Greens have been quite critical of Gina Rinehart, a mining magnate, buying into Fairfax, yet you've said nothing at all about Graham Wood, a businessman who was a significant donor into the Greens, setting up or paying for his own media website. Should not investment in the media, particularly in newspapers, which are widely believed to have a difficult future, be welcomed wherever it comes from?
Look, I think diversity of ownership is what is at issue here, and when you've got a special interest group who's not short of dough and who's consistently said wants to mine this country effectively until there's no tomorrow, I think that's a concern when you've got ownership in the hands of such few people. I think it's a different situation when you've got a new entrant to the media field. So, no problem with having more voices. In fact, that's what we'd love to see.
So if Gina Rinehart wanted to set up
particularly
her
in
own...
Queensland, where we've only got the one newspaper, we'd love a few more.
So if Gina Rinehart wanted to set up a Queensland newspaper, you'd be happy with that?
Well, look, she'd be very welcome to. I don't know. I personally don't know if I'd read it, but look, good luck to her if that's what she wants to do. I think the point is we need that diversity. We need to make sure that we don't have just a handful of very rich people controlling the news that we're all told, because it's important. We've all got to keep up to date with what's going on, and we've got to make sure that we're getting news, not just views.
The Greens have also been highly critical of both parties' positions on asylum seekers, of trying to, as Tony Abbott says, stop the boats. But do you have any qualms, any concerns about the dangerous, often dangerous journey that asylum seekers make from Indonesia to Australia? And do you have any ideas for stopping that?
Look, of course we do, but I think you've got to look at why. Why are people actually getting on these boats and taking that incredibly treacherous journey? It's because they're desperate. And as a mother, if I was in that situation, and I'm going to get a bit choked up, but I would do everything that I could to protect my daughter. If I felt that she and I were at risk, that's just what you do. We're all human beings. So what we need to do as a country, with quite a lot of influence in this sphere in our own region, we've got to play a better leadership role. We need to start driving those regional solutions and try and alleviate as much as we can the need for people to take that trip. So we need to have those proper processing centres, but we need to make sure that people, when they do come here, let's actually process them on shore. Let's not subject them to yet more distress, these vulnerable folk who've already faced an awful lot. I just think our heart is big enough in Australia. We can actually do better, and we've got such a tiny proportion of folk who come to our shores by boat. We can do better. Let's welcome them.
If I could ask you finally about the leadership of your party. Leadership in the Labor Party has come under some question. Bob Brown's been the leader of your party for a long time. Your party now has a lot of new faces. You yourself have been in the Senate for just 7 months. Does there come a time where Senator Brown has to hand over to the next generation?
Well, look, if there is, none of us know about it, and he certainly looks very happy to me and says on a regular basis that he's having such a wonderful time and wouldn't go anywhere, and we certainly hope that he doesn't go anywhere for a long time yet. But it's just wonderful to be part of this growing team. There's 10 of us now, as you said, and I feel so honoured to be part of the team. We're all come from different backgrounds, but we're all just incredibly cohesive and good friends. and all engaged and, having a ball.
Larissa Waters, thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure, Lyndal.
And that's all for Capitol Hill. Please join us at the same time tomorrow.